Namaste, nerds. This is Navinad, the Budget Pub Stomper, and today we're going to be doing an interview with one of our finalists from the Budget Competitive Brew Off, and this is CaioAlp. I don't know why I trip over his name. It's because it's too easy, I think. But he entered a deck that I looked at. I just took a kind of a cursory glimpse at first, and it just immediately captured my attention. I thought, this is something I've not seen before. Now, I have played against Tayam in cEdh, but I've not ever seen it in budget before. And I was kind of amazed at just how much of it he was able to kind of keep in the list while still keeping that budget down. Now, having played against it in cEdh, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and having played against it and lost to it both times I played against CaioAlp, I still am no closer to understanding the deck than I was when I first looked at it. So I want to just kind of ask Caio to kind of introduce himself and then just take us through the deck, maybe an overview of the list and the win lines, the overarching strategy, maybe even like why he's choosing some cards that other people don't, that sort of thing. So can you introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi everyone. I'm CaioAlp. It's a pleasure to actually be talking about it. Tayam has been actually my favorite deck since I started brewing it, and it's been really interesting. It's been really interesting to actually build it on a budget because uh, it's actually so I'm from Brazil, and we actually have a very popular budget sub-format here. So I have already been brewing Tayam on a budget for a while, and it's interesting to join a new community that's also doing something kind of similar.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that is a pretty big deal over there, isn't it? The hundred or what
Yeah,
is it? $150, $150.
it's 500 reais. Reais is the Brazilian currency.
Gotcha.
We call it Commander 500.
Yep.
It's actually probably more popular than traditional cEdh here. We
Wow.
had the actual largest tournament for Commander overall. Before the boil 2, it was actually from one of it was actually a tournament from this sub format.
Really?
It was organized. Yeah, it was organized by Deco. It was the I don't know if it was the first or the second. I think the second CMD 500, the name of the tournament. It was actually the biggest Commander tournament for until the Boil 2.
Wow. I didn't realize that that really had anything to do with that. So that's interesting. So you've been playing and brewing in the budget space for a good while. So before I get off topic, I wanted to ask, what does that translate into roughly? Like if you're going from 500 Portuguese currency into U.S. currency, what is like how many American dollars does that translate into roughly?
So actually, the conversion isn't really the same as it would be from actually converting reais to dollars, to American dollars, because the prices of the cards are a bit different
Sure.
from one country to the other. So
Yeah.
the both lists are actually very similar, very similar. There are
Wow.
just a few cards that are a bit different, even though like I think the real is about six. Yeah, I think $1 is 6 reais right now. Not sure,
So
not very much sure, but I think that's the conversion rate. But since the price of the cards aren't the same between the countries, like 15 cards, a card that costs 15 cents could also cost 15 reais here,
mm-hmm.
15 cents of reais.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
When
actually very similar.
when you went from the 500 to the 100 US, did you end up having to cut some things, or were you able to add some things? is it more complicated than
Like,
that? You had to kind of switch some things around.
yeah, I had to switch some things around. Some stuff I had to cut because it just wasn't worth the price.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit from the mana base mostly that I decided to cut. Actually, let me go. No, let me scroll down a bit. I decided to cut, for example, where is it? Here. I decided to cut, for example, those lands, the depletion lands. I'm running those in my 500 HAL build. And those lands are pretty decent. I've been testing them somewhat recently. But I thought they took a bit too much from the budget and other cards that I wanted to test. For example, some cards in the dollar, their dollar price is a bit better than the HAL price.
Okay.
So, for example, Hex Drinker.
Hey, there he is.
Hex
I was
Drinker.
asking you. I was
Yeah.
asking you about the Hex Drinker. So that was more expensive when you budgetized it on. You're in Brazil than it is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot more expensive here in Brazil. So I wanted to test it a bit more in the budget context.
Yeah.
It's a must. It's pretty much a must include, or almost a must include in cEdh Tayam.
Yeah. From what I hear, it's just the best conversion from mana to counters that you can get.
Yeah, it's pretty much it is. It's the most effective mana sink for counters.
So looking at this batch of cards, I think that probably a lot of people that are looking right now at it, if they've not seen the cEdh version of this or not played with it, it probably just looks like a big batch of cards. Can you kind of go into what the commander does so we have an idea of why we're playing like Ication Money Changer, for instance?
Yeah, of course I can. And just to be clear, that everyone's experience with time, even cEdh players that aren't used to it, will look at the cEdh list and will think, "Oh my God, what's all this crap?
Yeah, that's true.
How's that play cEdh?"
Yep.
So let's go a little bit over time. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So Tayam is a legendary creature. It costs a total of 4 mana, 1 generic, a white, a black, and a green. So it's absent. It's a 3/3, and it has a static ability that says each other creature you control enters with an additional vigilance counter on it. It also has an ability that says pay 3 mana, remove 3 counters from among creatures you control as a cost. And the resolution says to mill 3 cards, then return a permanent card with mana values 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
That is so crazy. Like I cannot imagine looking at this card. I can imagine looking at it and thinking, I wonder if there's crazy things to do with this. But to actually be able to go from that to, I know what the crazy things to do are. I mean, it's just such a complicated bunch of text.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not the first person to brew Tayam.
Well, sure.
The ones that actually came up with this Tayam archetype, because there are a few different ones, but the ones that actually came up with this archetype that focuses around some weirder cards, some weirder combos that are actually Tuca and Pixel Clerk.
Yeah.
They are the ones that made the Luminous Grindstone build. That list is the one that I'm mostly using as a basis for my own build, and also all the other different lists for Tayam that I made.
They've been successful with cEdh with their lists. I know the names. Are they just? I mean, maybe I'm way off base here, but are they from Brazil?
No,
okay.
They are from Poland, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Okay, so this guy is gonna give all of your creatures a vigilance counter, which I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say we probably don't give a whole bunch of shit about the vigilance.
It's a counter.
But it's a counter. Yeah.
It's a counter.
And
yeah.
That's
all that matters.
You can pay 3 and remove 3 of any kind of counter, and you get to basically recur a thing. You mill some cards and recur a thing out of your graveyard for mana value 3 or
Yeah,
less.
you remove counters from creatures. That's important. We have a saga here, for example. We can't remove counters from sagas. I wish I could, but I can't.
Okay.
But
it looks like a Stax deck to me when I look at the commander and I think what would be the broken thing.
That's the one thing that I kind of want to talk about Tayam. Yeah, everyone thinks Tayam is a Stax deck.
Yeah.
That's only half a truth.
Right. Well, I just mean looking at the commander.
Because
I would assume by looking at the commander that's what we're gonna do with it. But there's cooler shit.
I mean, not just the commander. Yeah, you can. I mean, even if you look at the deck list, it kind of screams this is a Stax list, but it's not just a Stax list.
No.
This is mostly a mid-range deck, even though it sounds weird because mid-range decks are mostly known for their card quality.
Yeah.
And they're but this is kind of but this is kind of the most non-blue deck, the most blue non-blue deck, if you can think about it.
Yeah.
So what is this trying to do? This deck is mostly trying to use Tayam as an engine and as a combo piece. Its early turns are mostly trying to set up Tayam activations or Stax pieces if needed, only if needed. And once you have a massive amount of resources, mana, and counters, you can convert those into a win.
Okay.
Maybe you can think about. Maybe you can think how Thrasios. Yeah, no, don't worry. You can maybe think about how Thrasios converts mana into card draw. Tayam does a similar thing.
Okay, so it's an engine. It's a value engine, which anybody who watches my videos knows.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the boxes I like to tick. I want to check the value engine box when possible for my commander if I'm going competitive. And then one of the other major boxes to check is a combo piece. So if you have a commander that is both a value engine and either is part of a combo, enables combos, pays off combos, then I think a lot of times that just means you're on to something. And if it's already going to fit into an archetype that's somewhat established, like just mid-range Stax, then yeah, it makes sense why it would be a good commander. But I think what most people would do is, they, myself included, would read the commander and only think, okay, so we're going to be a Stax deck and we're going to be bringing Stax pieces out. I would be thinking like Heliod, Ballista kind of things, or just like commander agnostic stuff. But I would have missed for sure all of the crazy combo potential that Tayam actually has. I think that's the most. I mean, that's usually the most interesting part of a deck. But in this deck in specific, the combos are so freaking cool. I think that's a really interesting part of the deck, is how it can just kind of pop off out of nowhere at instant speed when you're not expecting. Like I was playing against one of the games. I thought I had it won. One of the games taught me that I was wrong to not be afraid of rule of law. I was playing Malcolm Kedis. I thought every time I've played my cEdh Malcolm Tana deck into a Staxy pod, I always win those games because I can win through rule of law. I can win without casting spells. I can. My deck is geared to kind of go into the long, play a mid-range long game, but I also think I can win through rule of law. So I wasn't too afraid. I thought I'd be able to do just fine, but it was absolutely not the case. For one thing, having a rule of law in play, when I can only cast one spell, I can try to go for my win con, but I can't protect it. And that ended up being the thing that I wasn't really thinking about. Like, yes, I can try to win, but I can't like drop Glinthorn Buccaneer and then counterspell the removal. The other thing that was weird is that once we were kind of stacked out, I wasn't expecting you to be able to win so easily at instant speed. I wasn't thinking of it in terms of like a Magda type deck where it doesn't need to wait for its turn and it doesn't have to go through counter spells. It can just win. Am I right about that? It can win at instant speed. I feel like you won on somebody else's turn when they were trying to win.
Yeah, it can definitely win at instant speed. It's kind of its whole game plan when it's trying to win. Okay. It has pretty much this grind plan that we're trying to set up our value engine. We're trying to stop our opponents from winning, and basically that puts it in a place that it doesn't really matter which combo we're using to win. it kind of doesn't. So the one thing that actually makes Tayam play all those weird combos is because even though they are a bit less efficient when it comes to the card quantity, most of those combos are 3-4 card combos. They are really hard to interact because you're using them all through you're getting all your pieces through Tayam, through the Tayam activation, so counter spells don't work.
Yep.
And you're doing that at instant speed. That's basically all what its whole thing. It's trying to be uninteractive. It's trying to be inevitable, because even if you do have the removal to stop it, it might just get things back. Maybe you do remove time, but it has a shit ton of mana and can just recast it on its turn. Something like that. So that's kind of its thing. It is trying to win at instant speed. It is trying to win without going through the stack normally.
It kind of has a lot in common with Magda in a weird way. Like it's sort of like a cousin, like a bird of a feather, a spiritual kind. It's like I don't know, like they're not at all the same, but they feel the same.
You can think a bit about cEdh, for example.
Okay.
cEdh also does that. Also cEdh, Magda and cEdh are a bit closer. Let's say as almost like sisters. They are both searching from the deck. Tayam's not doing that. Tayam's not searching from the deck. It's just dumping cards. It's effectively drawing cards. The graveyard becomes your hand. Basically, you can read Tayam as pay 3, remove 3 counters, and draw 3 cards and play one of them. That sounds really busted when you read it like that.
Yeah, especially when you think about all the lame counters that don't make a difference in any other deck, right? Like Iketion Money Changer, like what is that thing called, the Mana Gorger Hydra? I mean, just some of these easy ways to just put any kind of counter up, and then if I'm remembering right, you are paying 3 mana, removing 3 counters, and then you are milling some cards into the bin, but then you can recur any card that's in the bin. You don't have to recur one that you just milled, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
you basically if we consider the graveyard the hand for Tayam, you basically have a hand with no limit size.
Yes. Yep. And now you said these are like 3 and 4 card combos, but the combos are layered combos, right? Like you don't need exactly these 3 or exactly these 4 pieces. Are there? I know there's tons and tons of combos. Probably too much to really get into and do any justice with it. But are there kind of some main combos?
Yes, there are. I mean, this thing right here is not. It isn't a joke. Let me show a little bit of the primer that I wrote for this list.
Love the primer.
There's a reason why when I wrote the combos in the primer, I decided to also add, this section, the substitutes section, because if we do actually consider like every single combination of cards a different combo, for example, if we consider Karen Feed, Strangleroot Guys, into Invite Art, one combo, and we also consider Bartolomeo, Young Wolf, Hishkar, another different combo, you might actually get 100 different combos. So when we're talking about Tayam, it doesn't really make sense to think about its combos like that. You are trying to kind of discover a logic behind all the combos. You're trying to learn their mechanics, how they really work, because that's when you can actually go into a game. You probably don't know literally all the combos in your deck, but you might stumble into something you never found before. Sometimes that happens. When Marvin came out, it actually happened quite a few times. Quite a few times. We have, let me find here. This is the Marvin combo that I added to the prime. There are other Marvin combos, quite a lot
And what
actually.
is Marvin? I
And
mean, I remember what it looks like, but what exactly does it do?
let me go back
Oh, okay.
to the deck list. It's probably a bit easier
I
to
know this
show
was
it
a
like
big
that.
this was a big get for a couple of decks. Sisse, I think, it turbocharged some of the Sisse lines.
I wouldn't be surprised to be honest. So Marvin is a legendary artifact creature that costs two colorless mana. Marvin says that it has all activated abilities of creatures you control that don't have the same name as this creature.
Okay, so is this primarily going to
So
be something like pseudo haste enabling?
it does that. It does quite a bit more, but it is also a pseudo haste enabler. The one thing that it's gonna happen in this list is that all cards have multiple purposes. That's kind of the how it kind of is a mid range deck. All your cards are doing multiple things. Even though all the cards you have don't make sense in other decks, all your cards make the most sense in Tayam. All your cards are doing double, triple work. That's maybe something like uh, even a demonic tutor wouldn't do normally. A lot of cEdh builds from Tyon don't play demonic tutor because
Wow.
it doesn't do it doesn't it's not very good in the deck list just because mostly because of the rule of laws.
Okay.
If you play a demonic tutor if you play a demonic tutor when you have a rule of law, you're basically almost time walking yourself. You're paying 2 mana to get a card into your hand, and then you probably have to wait another whole rotation to play it again, unless it's an instant or something like that. But this deck doesn't really have many instants.
Hey,
So
can I pause this for just a second? I got a little bit of an emergency to tend to. Just a moment.
okay.
Sorry about that, guys. I just had a quick emergency I had to handle. I think we were just talking about the layered combos and Marvin and how all of the pieces serve different functions, something like that.
Yes. So basically that's how the deck's trying to kind of do that mid-range game plan. It's doing all of its cards are the best for it. All of its cards either do mana or do counters or do something adjacent to the strategy. Uh, maybe they also do counters and they are combo pieces. The sack outlets are probably one of the best examples of how they can have multiple functions. You can use the sack outlets, of course, as combo pieces. They are one of the main parts to actually make different stuff happen, make different combos, but also they help you dodge removal. If someone points, I don't know, Azure to Plowshares to a Stax piece or they are trying to bounce it, you can just sack and recur them back. You can use the sack outlets to, I don't know, sack some dorks that aren't doing much. You already have the mana, so you can sack for a few extra counters. Or let me
Right.
see what else.
And yeah, like if I go to remove your stacks piece, that's pretty annoying that you can just pop it back into play. And that Marvin, it just has all of the activated abilities of all of the creatures you control, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can actually show a bit of how Marvin can do its thing, because
Yeah, maybe that's
Marvin is
better than.
quite.
You were going through the primer and showing the combo. Is that the one you're going to show here?
We can show that, and we can also show Marvin is kind of the newest addition, the newest main addition to the deck. So it actually brought something really interesting to the deck. We didn't. There wasn't really a very good non-commander combo with Tayam.
Okay.
There were a few, of course. There are a few generic absent decks, a few generic absent combos that could be run in the deck, but they they had usually cards that didn't have the Tayam game plan. So you would often have a combo that didn't need the commander, but you would also be adding some dead cards to the deck,
Right.
and that's not what we want to do. We want to every flip to matter. We want every top deck to be maybe a way to go through so a board that couldn't have a win before. Maybe the board is completely locked out. You have time. You have no counters. You want to top deck what will give you counters. You want to top deck that extra mana that you need to do an activation or that a random creature just to be that less countering when you have the board that doesn't bring that doesn't seem to develop anywhere. Sometimes when you're doing a stacks game plan, you can just play some stacks pieces. The board is blocked, but you also aren't developing anything. Maybe your board got wiped before, and now you have no more counters, or maybe your dorks got wiped, and you have just been able to cast time. You need some of those cards to be really efficient ways to develop both counters and mana.
Right, right.
Uh, or in the case of Marvin, it's an incredible combo piece and also makes some of the generic engines we have, the generic counter engines, let's say it like that. The generic counter engines super powerful. It's almost like a clone in this deck. It's almost that. So the combo that Marvin brought to us is basically, let me zoom up a little bit. It's basically Incubation Druid, Devoted, and Marvin himself. That's a way to make infinite mana and infinite adapt off of the copy of the Incubation Druid ability. So basically what you want to do here is adapt Marvin. You pay the adapt cost copied from Incubation Druids. Let's see.
What's the mana cost to adapt it? Okay.
Here. It's 5. 3 generic, double green. You adapt Marvin. Place 3, +1/+1 counters on it.
Yep.
Tap it for 3 mana. Let's... 1-3. Use the copied ability from Devoted Druid to place a -1/-1 counter on it and untap it. It will cancel out with the +1/+1 counter. You tap it again. If you have some land from another color, you do another color. And you just keep doing that to make infinite mana.
Wait,
now you
how is
can
this,
just
how is
pay
this
that.
making infinite mana? So does it cost less to adapt than you're able to get
Yeah,
out of it?
basically you're making more mana than what you're paying to adapt Marvin. You need to pay 5 mana to adapt Marvin. You're always tapping for 6 mana, if I believe.
Oh, right. How much does Incubation Druid tap for when it's adapted?
3. It's
So
tapping
it
for
taps
3
for
when it's
3,
adapted.
and then you can use the Devoted Druid ability of removing a counter or to untap it. Essentially removing a counter to untap it.
Yeah, essentially.
I got it.
Yeah, essentially you remove a counter and do that. Once you have infinite mana, you can just cast Tayam, and you also have infinite mana, so you can adapt it again, activate Tayam, remove the counters, and keep adapting and activating Tayam.
Okay.
That combo is a very good addition to the deck.
Yeah.
It's Tayam didn't have a lot of non-commander combos. It's mostly a commander deck. It's mostly built around the commander. Even the cEdh lists play Command Beacon, for example, as not just as a way to dodge commander attacks, but also as a way to play the commander through Drenith. Play through Drenith Magistrate without removing it. Because that way you can just keep the commander and keep the others. Your other opponents is still under it.
So do you play Varals in the deck, or has anybody tried that?
Oh, I don't even remember what it does.
Well, it's usually a
okay, now I remember the one that does hook things and can exile stuff for counters, right?
That was the number 1 deck when we combined all the scores in this
Yeah.
little competition.
Yes.
And it's got that weird mechanic that actually it's scavenge, where you can exile a creature card out of the graveyard to produce that many counters, but it's also a sack outlet. It might be a bit too much mana. Your sack outlets are 1 mana, I guess.
I mean, I do have one that costs 3 mana. How is that written?
Oh boy. It's VAROLZ.
VAROLZ.
Yeah.
Okay. So
There it is.
let's see. I remember I looked at it for after the video. Uh, Let me see what was. Como é que é esse card details? View details. Each creature card. Okay, I remember now why I was a little bit interested when I looked at it, but also this phrase here is the little problem.
Ah, yep. Okay.
This thing right here, yeah, this is the little problem right here.
Yeah, it was just a thought. I was thinking it could fill multiple roles in the deck, but yeah, if you're trying to go off at instant speed, or if you need the instant speed for some of the combos, it's not gonna work.
To be honest, I don't think it's the worst idea for Tayam. You could, I don't know, you could just exile a dork that ended up in the grave and you don't need it again to get another counter. It's a sec outlet. Sec outlets are pretty good in this deck. But I don't think it does. I legit don't think it does enough.
Yeah, maybe for
it will do a
3 mana. It's a bit much.
Yeah, I just don't think it does enough. If it was at instant speed, it would be a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
And a lot of times, I guess you don't want to exile your pieces if they're some of the bigger pieces that would be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan, but
that was just a thought.
Yeah, if it's needed, it can be done. I mean, I don't mind exiling a dork that I don't plan on recurring.
Yeah.
I don't mind exiling, I don't know. Even some of the combo pieces can be exiled because the deck is so has a lot of redundancy.
Yeah, and a lot of layers to the combo. So when you get that infinite mana and infinite activations, now I know obviously when I see that the person who built the deck wouldn't build a deck that can't win when it goes off, but how is it that you're actually closing the game? What makes everybody dead? There it is.
In the budget list, the easiest one is Moonglove Extract. It's very simple. Recur it, sacrifice, deal 2 damage, to an opponent, recur it, keep looping it. And there's another one, that's a little bit more
mana and infinite counters, then you can just cast that and then hit somebody and then recur it, and then hit somebody and recur it, and hit somebody over and over. Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea. You basically have infinite damage with this.
Yeah.
There's another kill condition in the deck, and it's White Plume. So White Plume will let you take the initiative. So you can always go through the entire dungeon. Now, the room in the dungeon that actually kills everyone is the trap room. Target player loses 5 life. But the problem is that right after that there's a room that says to draw a card.
Yeah.
The trick you have to do with this is basically each room trigger is an individual. Each room is an individual trigger. So you can basically just hold priority on any of the rooms and keep looping White Plume on top of it. So let's say I'm at the archives room. I have the trigger on the stack. I can just say that I hold priority, sacrifice White Plume, and keep going through my loop without letting this room or any of the other ones, just letting the trap room resolve.
So that way you don't deck yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise you kill yourself. It's not what we're trying to do. But let's see if I can find some other interesting Tayam combos. Maybe something that I didn't put in the primer, because the primer the people can just read it. I think one that's probably a bit interesting would be Nature's Chosen, because that's a bit of a weird card. We can do...
Yeah, that's one that I was asking you about because it looked like something in the cEdh versions that you'd want to use the Gaia's Cradle, and I
Yeah.
noticed the fact that you kind of have Gaia's Cradle at home here.
Let's do this. Let's grab a young wolf just and then let's just get any white creature.
I don't think it would be a bad idea to show just kind of the, if you could call it a main combo, the main combo too.
Oh, sure. That's a little, I guess that will make things a little bit easier. Let's get guys then.
I think that's what people are gonna wanna see and know probably. That's what I want to understand better for sure.
So entering here, I would say that this is pretty much the main Tayam combo. What you need is basically Tayam board and all the other pieces too. And 1 mana floating. Let's make it colorless just to say that the color doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So this is a combo that will end up in infinite counters, and it's basically, and after that you have to pivot into another way to make infinite mana. And it's pretty simple. Let's go through it. This is called the floating loop combo, and it's called that basically because you need a floating mana to start.
Okay.
So what you want to do is you want to tap Congradulations guys for mana because you have something like Enduring Vitality or Rishka to help your creatures tap for it. Adding 1 mana, sacrificing it to the Carrion Feeder.
Okay, and what's the Strangleroot Geist? Can we read the text on that?
Strangleroot Geist reads as a 2/1 with haste and undying.
And when it's undying,
when you sacrifice it,
so if it's undying, it will come back into play and then get a +1 counter on it. And then if it comes into play, if it leaves play without the counter, it comes back and gets the counter. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
If it had no +1/+1 counter, return it with its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter.
So if you can somehow
it will also
get that counter off of it, then it'll keep coming back.
If only there was a way to remove counters.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basically the idea.
But that's only 2 counters. We're gonna get 2 counters for that because but we don't need to recur it because it just recurs itself. So that's infinite counters.
You do recur it in this line. I'll go through the line. It doesn't end here.
Okay.
So Geist returns with a +1/+1 counter from the Undying trigger and a vigilance counter from the static spine ability. So we want to tap it again, thanks to the haste. Make another mana, activate Tayam. Yeah. At this point, we want to hold priority on the Tayam activation. Let me do this.
Did we need another counter?
No, we don't need another counter.
Because we had the vigilance counter and the undying counter.
We have a vigilance count. Yeah, we had a vigilance counter here, a +1/+1 counter from the undying trigger, and a counter from the Carrion Feeder ability.
Oh, when you
sacrificing the creature for.
Oh, right.
+1/+1.
You sacked the first time to even get the. Yeah, I got it. Okay.
So now there's a Tayam activation on the stack. We hold priority. Sacrifice Geist again. Another counter here. Here and here. Still holding priority, tap it for a mana and sacrifice it again. It won't come back from the Undying trigger because it had a +1/+1 counter, but now we allow the Tayam activation to resolve. You will mill 3 cards and return Geist. It will only have the vigilance counter because it's coming back because of the Tayam ability, not because of the Undying trigger.
Sure.
And we're back at the initial board, but with 2 +1/+1 counters on Carrion Field. Technically also another one on guys, but it doesn't really matter.
The vigilance counter on Geist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one basically doesn't matter. What it matters is that we're at the first, we're back at the beginning with 2 counters on Carrion Feeder.
Okay.
So this combo will mill the entire deck and it will get you infinite counters on Carrion Feeder, okay?
Okay.
Let me just toss the graveyard into the deck into the graveyard. To pivot, to make infinite mana, because we already have infinite counters, so now we need infinite mana. We just tap it again, make the second mana, sack, it will come back. Tap it again to make the third mana, activate Tayam, and all we need to do is recur something like Lotus Bloom. Lotus Bloom is basically Land at Home, Landside Diamond at Home. It taps and sacrifices itself to add 3 mana of any one color. You sacrifice it for anything. Sacrifice Geist. It comes back. Tap it again for any mana and activate Time. We already have infinite counters. This is now making one addition. This is now making infinite mana because we're using the 3 mana to activate for Time and tapping for an extra 1.
Right.
With infinite mana and infinite counters, you can get either Moonglove Extract or Wet Plume to win the game.
Got it. Okay.
That's the basic combo. So that kind of shows that it's not a very intuitive combo. Most players, when they join the Tayam Discord server, they don't really they don't see this combo at first. They usually either have to read the primer, the cEdh list, which isn't very well written, but it's there. It's at least there. Or they usually will have someone just show them the combo.
Yeah.
There's also a text channel in the Discord server that basically explains some of that basic stuff. There's also a beginner questions text channel. Basically, but this kind of shows itself that Tayam isn't really a very simple deck.
It's not.
This is,
and it's interesting to me that everything had to be just so. Like, if strength anything is different here, the combo doesn't work, right? Like if he doesn't give a vigilance counter, if Strangleroot Geist didn't have haste, it wouldn't work. I mean, everything is just perfect for this to work out. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there are ways to. That kind of goes for the redundancy of the deck, but there are ways to do technically the same combo with different cards. For example, we can, instead of Geist, we can do Young Wolf, and we can do, and if we have Tyver on board.
Now, but the Young Wolf. Oh yeah, okay. I was gonna say, but the Young Wolf doesn't have haste. That's not.
It doesn't have haste.
Got it. But Tyvar.
But Tyver solves the problem here.
Gotcha.
For some reason, this doesn't want to just highlight the text, but okay.
Yeah, so Tyvar lets you guys tap as though they had haste, right? So
yes.
That basically turns the wolf into the Strangleroot Geist.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Tyver was also a big change to the deck when it released. It allows a lot of different stuff. For example, I think you can show the variation with the Devoted Druid that's also in the primer, but it's also a mechanically similar combo to this one, and it also kind of will lead to a pretty good segue to back to Marvin.
Yeah, that was another one that the Sisei people were all very happy about, was Tyvar. Yeah, I see this is like the spiritual sister of Sisei.
Yeah, it pretty much is. At least I would say they have a lot of similarities. Yeah. They do have a lot of differences too, but they do have. I do think about Magda, about Tayam, about cEdh, as kind of that archetype that is trying to go over the top of other decks.
Mm-hmm.
They are trying to grind the game. They are trying to win without really being interrupted or way harder to be interrupted. That's what they are trying to do.
Well, and from
Same goes
situations where it doesn't look obvious that they can win.
true, but I wouldn't really say that's uh that's really something that defines them. Of course, they get this privilege, but I think they get this privilege just because people don't really want to learn those texts because they are hard
That
to learn.
could be. That could be. I was playing Buddy's
It's
Magda list
yeah.
last week, and one thing that struck me about the Magda deck was I looked like I was totally out of the game. My Magda had been killed
Hmm.
twice, and the second time I let it go to the graveyard because I had a Dermotaxi in hand, and I only had 2 treasures in play. I didn't have my commander in play, and I was able to actually just win the game on that turn, you know? So it was kind of like,
Hmm.
even I think people that had a vague notion of what the deck was trying to do didn't think I had it, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. You really have those decks are trying to do a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
They are very complex. They have a lot of different lines, and if you don't really know how they work, they will get you just because you might not consider that they had a line under, I don't know, a weird stacks piece, or because their commander is out, or because something is a little bit off that you would imagine that it completely stops them,
Yeah.
but it really doesn't.
Yeah.
For example, one of the cards that of course is really annoying for Tiny is Graph Digger's Cage. But if Graph Diggers is really popular in the format, there is a line that you can just win through Graph Diggers. I don't have it in my current deck right now because I don't think Graph Diggers will be that popular early on in the meta. Might not also be very popular later, but if it does ever become popular, there is a way to go through it.
And do you have removal for Graph Digger's Cage in the deck?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, there is. Actually, my deck has a lot of removal for the things that I think are pretty annoying for Tayam. For
Okay.
example, I do have. Where is it?
Hmm.
No,
Seal.
where is it?
Seal of
That's
Uncleansing.
basically the enchantments that
Oh, you passed
here.
it. Seal of.
Seal of cleansing. I
Okay.
just want to find the other one, but I don't know if I actually have in this list. But in this list, I do have both of the seals of
Okay.
cleansing and seal of protection. Those are, I think, the best ways to remove the problems for Tayam, for example. Because one of the other problems is Cursed Totem. Cursed
Ah.
Totem wouldn't let me activate abilities. That includes Tayam, that includes something like Haywire Might, that includes in other things, but that also means I can't really use things with ETBs that destroy artifacts to destroy those things. So Mango Horn, for example, is a very good card,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really move Cursed Totem. So when I built this, I really wanted the stuff that could remove Cursed Totem, that could remove Graph Diggers, that could remove all the problems. Rest in Peace, for example.
Curse Totem is a piece that I
Um,
have put in a number of my builds too.
Yeah, Cursed Totem. I mean, since we're doing budget time, I think since budget time and the budget matter overall, we might. I do believe we might see Cursed Totem a bit more
I
because
mean, I think we should. It's definitely a powerhouse in the format. Like it's because there's a lot more dorks and a lot more just a lot of the best
yeah.
things. Just they have activated abilities and are creatures. I've in the Niv Mizzet tech that I put out yesterday. Curse Totem was in it, and the last one I remember was Tivit for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, I do think that probably most decks that aren't using dorks or other creatures should probably be on cursed totem.
Yeah, if you can play,
Maybe there's
if it
an
doesn't
exception.
bother your deck, you probably should have it in at least in budget.
Yeah, you probably should. Let's talk just really quick about this combo, and just to get to the another Marvin combo, just to show how flexible, for example, those cards can be,
Yep.
and how layered the combos are.
Yeah.
The combos are. For example, this is basically a variation on the floating loop combo. It is mechanically very similar because we are also just, I think we need floating mana to start, and we also need, I believe, 2 counters in this situation. Yeah, I think we also need 2 counters to start this one.
So when you say a
So let's say
floating mana,
something
you
like
really
that.
you just need there to be an untapped land or any
Yeah,
untapped
any mana source.
Okay.
Any mana source available. So let's say, let's start doing tapping it for mana, adding green, activating it to untap, tap it again, activate Tayam. Oops. Here. Time activation on the stack, hold priority, activate the Devoted Druid to untap itself, tap it for another green, and sack it to the Carrion Feeder. Now we let the time activation resolve. We already milled the entire deck, get the Devoted Druid back, it enters with a Vigilance counter, and now we're back at the same starting position. This combo doesn't make infinite counters or infinite mana, but you basically have other ways to pivot into other combos. I think the best way to pivot this one in my current list is with Rishka. Once the deck is in the entire grave, you can get Rishka. Let's say the board is something like that, I guess. Yeah, we have an activation. We've done an activation, but instead of sacrificing the Devoted Druid and recurring it back again, we got Rishka. Rishka will enter with the Vigilance counter. The really cool thing, I think, yeah, that's like that. I really like, for example, that in this position, if you have any other creature with a counter, or yeah, if you have any other creature with a counter, or any other creature for other than those, even if someone responds to, I don't know, the Rishka trigger, the ETB trigger to add, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature, you can also respond with a Tayam activation to just keep going. So for example, let's do the normal combo and I'll say it in case someone responds. We get Rishka hit the bees. Let's place a counter on any 2 creatures. Something like that. Tap those for mana. Activates Devoted Druid to untap itself. Tap it again for the 3rd mana. Activates Tayam. Let's do like that. Mill 3 cards and get back, I don't know, Young Wolf, and we're back at the first combo. The first combo that I talked about.
And you don't have any, so it's not a problem that you, when you activate Tayam, that you mill cards off of an empty library. That doesn't actually cause you to lose the game.
No.
You have to draw a card off an empty library, right?
Yeah, you have to draw a card, and it's important. Some people do get this confused. You can activate Tayam with an empty library because Tayam's mill tree is not a part of the cost of the ability, it's a part of the resolution.
Yep,
so you can just, you don't need to have cards in your library to mill them.
Yep.
Let's just say like that.
So we're back to the Young Wolf.
Yeah, we're back to the first combo that I talked about. We have Carrion Feeder, we have Young Wolf, we have another mana source right here.
Your Young Wolf doesn't have a counter on it, so it can't be tapped for mana. Oh, you just sacrificed it to the Carrion Feeder.
It does have a counter. It has the Vigilance counter when we get back.
Is worded? It says if it has a counter?
Yeah, it's any counter.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes it a
So with
lot
a
better in the
counter
deck.
on it, it is. It is a lot better.
Okay, in the deck, in this
Um,
deck, yeah. Sick. That's very
so
cool.
basically, yeah. Let me also show the how I want to talk again about Marvin, because get this Marvin. Marvin kind of shows kind of got here to show why it's really good, really good, because Marvin and Devoted Druid is almost an underdeterministic line. You can do, because basically the way that people think about Tayam combos is basically as a math equation. You are trying to, each ability that you use that makes a counter or that adds mana is basically reducing the cost for a time activation. So if you think about Marvin and Devoted Druid, you basically have two Devoted Druids. That means you're discounting the time activation only to just one mana and one counter. So
Because you can put two negative. Wait, what? Oh, I see. Yeah, because you have to actually
yeah,
have the.
you're just, so basically what you can do in the situation of this board, you can just make your mana, make two counters. Let's say you have another one. Sorry. Let's say you have another one right here, for example. Just to activate time. 1, 2, 3, 4. You activate time, and you can get back any creature, and that basically pays for the, makes the third counter you need.
Right.
So, or you can get a land if you have extra counters, and now you have, let's just get another one. And now you basically have uh, this board with Devoted Druid and Marvin basically means that you can get just whatever resource that's lacking a bit more than the other and make it and spend just one of the resources you need for the activations. If I had a lot of counters, I can just grab more lands to basically just spend counters as I'm doing my activations and not have to worry about mana. If I have a lot of mana but no counters, I can just grab creatures to keep giving me counters and keep going through my deck.
And so, kind of
And there's a lot of
the skill of playing the deck seems like you want to just end up in situations where you're not getting like 3 mana for every 1 counter or 3 counters for every 1 mana. You want to be in a situation where you're kind of breaking even 3 counters, 3 mana, so you can keep those activations going. Because you can't spend them one at a time, right? You can't, like, you have to spend 3 counters at a time.
yeah.
This is maybe just the way I'm thinking about it, but
I mean, that's the way to kind of go for the combos. When you're trying to combo off, that's basically what you're trying to do. If you're playing time, you can basically consider that 3 plus 3 equals infinite.
mm-hmm.
That's kind of the joke around here.
3 plus
If you
3
have,
equals infinite,
yeah, that's basically the joke. For example, an undying creature and a sack outlet. No, it must be in here. Here. An undying creature and a sack outlet, for example, will always be 3 counters, regardless of whatever you're using. Basically, this right here means you have infinite counters because you're sacrificing to get a counter, it comes back with 2. You're always making 3 counters.
Because you're going to get 1 counter on the carrion feeder for sacrificing the creature. When it comes back, you're going to have the undying counter and the vigilance counter. So there's your 3 counters.
Yes.
So you've got as many counters as you need there. So then you need a way to come up with the 3 mana.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in that position, let's say if you don't have the mana, if you just have those cards on board, you can basically just activate time to get mana. You don't need to activate time to get more counters. Maybe you would want that if you're trying to consider your opponents can interact with you. when I said, for example, at the beginning that we want an abundance of resources, that's because technically this combo isn't that hard to stop. You just need to remove Tayam or just remove, I don't know, the carrion feeder or something like that. You just need removal to deal with it.
But
But
yeah,
if you have a lot of mana, if you have a lot of counters, someone will try to point the removal and you just activate time response. Someone else will point another removal and you just activate time in response.
yeah. So that
And
that
that's what it's kind of trying to do.
that is reminiscent of Magda for sure. Like even when you
Mm-hmm.
get to 10 treasures with Magda, you're not always just gonna try to go for it. You kind of wait until the last possible moment for a lot of reasons. But one is like you said, you go to win and they're like, well, I remove your thing, and you're like, okay, well, in response to that, I'm gonna win. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the cool thing that at least I think kind of makes Sion a bit more interesting than Magda and Cisse is that we're playing rule of laws. Rule of laws make so that those are not just stacks pieces to stop other people combos. Those cards also create windows for me to win the game, for example.
oh, that's a good point.
Uh, yeah, because once someone casts something, I don't know, maybe they decided to, I will develop a little bit more mana just to, so that I can develop something and hold my removal. So let's say they decide to cast a mana rock.
Hmm.
Now they're locked under rule of law. That means that's one less player for me to worry about if I'm trying to win.
Yeah, especially
That
in
means
budget, there might only be one player with mana open, and there's not a bunch of free interactions. So if the player that has mana open casts a cantrip or something, then they can't cast a counter spell or a removal spell, and you can just go.
hmm yeah, now they're locked.
Yeah.
I recorded and posted a game from a Brazilian tournament in the Discord we have for the budget community that Nav is making. That game has a very good example of that happening.
Okay.
I think it was in the very last few turns of the game. I I played a national Zalter and I think yeah because it was the last turns of the game. I played in a national Zalter from hand and there was a Tivits player right after me that completely understood that he needed to keep his interaction up, and a Kinnan player right after him that decided to try to go for the win because it was his last turn. He had to try something. Uh, but that meant that the other players had to interact with him too. The right after that Kinnan player there was another Tivit, and he basically tried to interact with him. Uh, that Kinnan player tried to remove a raw flaw that I had. That Tivit tried to stop him, and basically that gave me a really good window.
Right.
That the only player that could interact with me was the Tivit player before Kinnan. Unfortunately, I wasn't in a very good board position. But it was also the last few turns, so I took my chances. But he had the interaction to stop me. He had a removal and he had, I believe, if I remember correctly, yeah, he had touched the spirit realm and he did the channel to exile Tayam.
Oh yeah.
And if it wasn't for also a misplay of mine, because I decided to just try to go for the draw after that happened, I could also try another. I could also try to win another time and try to win again right before my turn. But basically, that's kind of the best position that Tayam wants to be. He wants to get into the position that everyone is trying to stop each other, that everyone is locked under your rule of law or they're all tapped, and you're just gonna take that very small window and try to win. Some other decks that have been doing something similar nowadays because of the flash enablers, for example, that work really well with necropotence. Uh, so that's kind of a thing that more decks are trying to do.
Yep.
Are trying to do more recently.
Valley Flood Caller and Born Upon a
Born.
Wind.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I have noticed
Uh,
in these videos, and I know everybody that's listening now, kind of by definition, is not turned off by the long time. But I've noticed in these videos that when we post them over an hour, it seems to take the viewers down. Um, so just we're at an hour and 5 minutes now. All of you listening, appreciate it. And post in the comments how I'm wrong and you want to see these more long form things, and share them and prove me wrong. But just FYI, we're coming up on an hour and 6.
okay. To be honest, if we really wanted, we could be talking about time probably for the rest of the day. But I think we can at least keep it short. I think I already showed enough how everything lays really well. I really showed a combo that gets into another combo that wins you the game. That uh,
Well, I think
I think I
I understand the deck a lot better now than before we started this conversation. Maybe what are some pieces that maybe people would look at and think are kind of, they just look crazy, and maybe like what are some of the pieces that you think look the weirdest but are the most powerful in the deck? And I want to add one to it. Now this doesn't look weird, but one of the pieces that I found that was the difference between me feeling like I had any chance of winning and not against your deck was that damn that thing. Scroll down. Can you scroll
wait.
that down right there? Sylvan Safekeeper.
Still
Man,
safekeeper.
when that
Yeah.
thing hit the second game we played, when that thing hit play, I kept trying to tell everybody, look, like, he's got the Sylvan Safekeeper. We need to take care of this situation before it's too late. But I think in a sense it already was too late. When that thing hits play, it becomes very difficult to deal with the deck. In fact, after playing against your deck, I actually put Sylvan Safekeeper in 2 decks that I play. One a cEdh deck, and then one
Hmm.
a budget cEdh deck.
Yeah, I think Silver Safekeeper is somewhat of a recent addition to the budget list. It has always been the CDH list, but thanks to the Modern Horizons 3 reprint, it became really cheap.
Yeah.
So it's been a very good inclusion. I was a little bit kind of uh, unsure about it because we don't really have something like Cradle. So, for example, even though we do have Itlimok, we can't use Sylvan Safekeeper, for example, to sacrifice Itlimok and recur it as a land.
No, right. Yeah.
If we sacrifice it, if we sacrifice Itlimok with Sylvan Safekeeper, it will just come back as an enchantment.
Well, and you think, I
But
think when I considered Sylvan Safekeeper in past, having never actually played it, the thought is, well, yeah, but then I'm going to end up sacrificing my lands, and that's going to be a problem. But what it actually ends up doing is stopping people from interacting with you at all, because they just know that all you'll have to do is sacrifice a land, and then you end up not having to sacrifice lands because people know they can't. It's almost like a Stax piece in a way, or I don't know.
yeah, I wouldn't even say that
Yeah.
because people will try to do something even if it's on board. But Tayam recurs the lands.
That's true too.
I think that's the big deal. For example, and also I think the rule of laws also make a really big difference
Yeah.
because you can't really compete with the when there's a rule of law on the board and Sylvan Safekeeper because I don't know. Let's say it's just before the time player's turn. You decide to remove time, something like that. The time player activates Sylvan Safekeeper, sacrifices a land, and they recur the same land. Someone tries to do the same, they activate again and recur the same land. You will need to coordinate a lot of stuff uh, to remove stuff from the tie on board when Silver Safekeeper is already out, and there's a rule of law. If there isn't a rule of law, I think that's a bit more plausible because now the Tayam player will need to evaluate if it's a good idea to sacrifice the lands, even if he can return them, because now you're spending your resources on stuff that isn't that impactful. Lands, they of course they are pretty good, but they are basically just one mana. They're not the best. They are probably not the best thing you could be recurring.
Yeah,
Uh,
all that is true. I'll say when I saw the Safekeeper though in play, I'm trying to formulate a way, right? Like that's what I'm doing when I was playing Malcolm Caddis. I'm thinking, okay, so how am I going to get out of the situation that we're in? And the thing that kept screwing me up was the Sylvan Safekeeper. Like every couple turns, I'd think, oh wait, I've got it, I've got an idea. I'm just gonna do this, and I'm like, oh fucking Safekeeper. Like I kept forgetting it, and you just can't get around it very easily.
mhm.
But what are some pieces like
Yeah.
what's a piece that you've been surprised by its efficacy, like something that maybe didn't look that good but it turned out to be like a really big piece for you?
I think for time in general, it's this guy, Pulse Advocate. It's a really weird card. It taps itself to return 3 targets from an opponent's graveyard to their hand, and I return a creature from my graveyard to my battlefield.
Interesting.
Now that sounds just that sounds just stupid in a card economy sense,
Mm-hmm.
because you're basically getting one, your opponent is getting 3.
Yeah.
But the thing that is pretty cool about Pulse Mage is that you're choosing the cards your opponent gets.
Sure.
I can just give you lands. I can just give you counter spells that won't affect me because I'm just activating abilities.
Oh, good
I
point.
can give you, I don't know, interaction for the player that is trying to win right now, and I also get a Stax piece that will shut off the next player or something like that. So I think Pulse Mage is actually a very powerful card that is a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a bit, it doesn't, it has the situations that it might not do much, either because there isn't 3 cards in any opponent's library, for example in the early game,
Yeah.
or maybe I don't have a creature in the graveyard just because I haven't done the setup to activate Stein yet. But once it works, it's it's a very good control piece in the board. A very good
Yeah,
control
that's
piece.
definitely one that I would not look at and say, okay, that needs to go into really any deck. But I have found that downsides like that end up not being as bad as they seem, just in general. Like I think a lot of times we bring our 1v1 brains into the game, and a lot of times it
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't work out that way. Like if you're trying to, like you're not trying to cast spells anyway, so actually giving, well, I mean, you can win without casting spells. So actually giving your opponent 3 counter spells could actually be just objectively good for you because it stops your opponents if it
Yes.
doesn't stop you. Yeah.
Uh, I think I think there are a lot of other cards that in Thailand that maybe not a lot, but there are 2 other cards that do something like that. Skullwinder is also does something similar.
Yep.
You have a bit less control on what you don't have control actually on what you're giving your opponent. But if you choose the right moment to recur a school winder, you can just recur when someone is trying to win, and now the blue player is forced to get a counter spell, otherwise he will lose, and you get something else.
Yeah, and you could use that
Uh,
politically too, where like, okay, who wants the card? I'll let you be the guy to get the card, but you have to get this card. Yeah.
yeah, you can also do that, but it's basically leveraging a political power that is very haven't very few decks in cEdh have done something like that. Brian, I think it's another one. When I play it, I'm always reminding people about how they can draw their extra card with a Brian trigger, because the trade for 1 card for them and 2 counters for me is much better for me. It's much better for me. It basically means that they are drawing 1 card, and I'll be drawing 3 from a time activation.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean this is one of those things too, where it's like, if you looked at this in a 1v1 sense, it ends up looking a lot worse, but it's not 1v1. Things are different. The card economy doesn't work the same way. It's like people get a little
Yeah.
bit confused about that, I think, in general. They think things like that wheels are bad because your opponents draw 21 cards. Well, it's like, that almost, I mean, if you had one opponent and they drew 21 cards to your 7 cards, the card would be totally unplayable. The fact that it's spread out, like if you're in a wheel situation, like if you're drawing more cards than your opponents are on average, that's usually going to be pretty good.
Yeah,
Just as an
I think
example.
I think whales. Yeah, I think whales have to be. I do think they are a bit deck dependent. I do think, for example, that a control deck probably shouldn't play a lot of wheels because they are probably the one that is drawing the most cards. They are the one that should be winning with the card advantage they have. But that's a little bit off
Yeah, yeah,
topic.
yeah.
Uh, I do think in my deck list, those are the cards that kind of people look and they will think, okay, why is that in a cEdh deck? Why am I giving my opponent something?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing something like that? If you understand Tayam, all the other cards that look a little bit weird make a lot more sense. Nature's Chosen makes a lot more sense when you consider that you have 2 Kratos in the deck. Occasion Money Changer makes sense when it's 1 mana for 3 counters, and it also keeps making more counters every upkeep. All the weird cards make sense once you understand what this is trying to do. But those 3, Brina, Pulse Mage, Skullwinder, and there's another one that's not about political power in a table, but those 3 I think are kind of overlooked. Skullwinder is a actually those 3 are actually tie-in staples right now.
Oh,
I
wow.
think most, if not, yeah, I think those 3, all if not almost all decks, even full cEdh decks that aren't trying to make budgets are playing.
Okay.
Most decks are definitely playing those, but for those who aren't playing tie-in, keep an eye out on those. Those are really powerful. Might also be really powerful in other decks.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Um,
Um, and any kind of last thoughts on why somebody might want to give the deck a shot? Why they might want to play it?
Oof. If you like a really good puzzle, you definitely want to look at Tayam. If you like the grind game, you want to look at Tayam. If you like a bunch of weird lines, you want to look at Tayam. I think Tayam is one of the most unique decks in cEdh and probably Commander, maybe even Magic in general,
Yeah.
but definitely in cEdh. Definitely in cEdh.
Yeah. I think I'd
So
agree.
if you want to, go ahead.
I
Don't
just gonna
worry.
say, yeah, I think I'd agree with that after having looked at the deck list and not really being able to make heads or tails of it. Now, I looked at it and I had heard of it, and I was looking at the deck list, and because I kind of knew what it was doing, I sort of had an idea that it was a well-built deck.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was trying to judge, whether or not it was well built, was my kind of position in the tournament or the contest judging. It looked to me like, well, I asked you the couple questions I had, and you had really good, like I asked, why is this card in there when you don't have this, and you fired back with an answer that totally made sense, and why isn't this card in, because I see it in a lot of other decks, and are we sure we shouldn't be playing Swords to
Mm-hmm.
Plowshares in our budget? You had like really good answers for all of the questions, and now after really getting my head around it a little bit better, I could say, yeah, I don't think I'd play Swords to Plowshares in the deck either.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about interaction, we could also be talking about all this section for a whole day. But I think for the people that want to play Tayam, I would say the people that would look at Tayam at least probably are looking for a very good puzzle. They are probably looking for a very grindy deck. This deck can win relatively early, even as a budget deck. Like if you're interrupted gold fishing, you can win by turn 5, even earlier turn 4. Uh, I already gold fished a turn 3 win, but it's very unlikely.
Sure.
But it can win relatively early. It can grind to infinity. So
Right on.
I think that's for the people that are looking. I just want to also say for the people that are playing against it, uh, be very careful when you're trying when you are removing stuff. Very careful, because removing stacks pieces, of course, is known to be a bit of a problem, because you might just be removing something that's a little bit annoying for you, but it's stopping the next guy from winning. But removing Tayam, for example, when the guy is trying to set up his engine or something like that, basically means you're removing another player from the pod that might help you, that might help stop someone else from winning, that might uh, make things a little bit easier. That works for slower decks, control decks, mid-range decks, something like cEdh, something like some builds from Malcolm kind of do that. Some of them try to be a little bit faster, but some Malcolm builds try to go to the mid-range. Esper piles.
Some of the Malcolm Kedis or Malcolm Tana decks try to go fast, and then some of the people know how to play the deck. I don't think it should be a fast deck.
Yeah, true. I agree. But basically, if you're trying to go for the grind game plan, Tayam is probably your friend. If you have a lot of board wipes in your deck, board wipes are actually way better in a budget scenario than others, because green is better, creatures are a little bit better. So board wipes also get a bit better if you're trying to do a control game plan.
Absolutely.
If you're doing that, Tayam is most likely your friend. Just don't let it play too much, otherwise it won't be your friend later.
And
you want to let it develop a little bit so that the stacks pieces might not get out that easily, but you also want to stop it before it snowballs, before your counter spells don't matter, before your removal might also not matter, for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would say if you're playing against Tayam, what you really need to figure out is you need to identify your own role in the pod and see what Tayam is relative to you, because in certain stages of the game, like if you're playing a turbo deck, or you just have found yourself to be the fastest deck in the pod, and you know your role is to try to get under everybody, then it could make a lot of sense to blast Tayam. But if you're trying to go mid-range, if you're trying to go mid-range and there's a couple faster decks in the pod, then you probably don't want to take Tayam out, because he's going to be your friend at least until he isn't, right?
Yeah, if you're the fastest deck, you probably should. You don't let Tayam hit the table. If you have the removal for it, you get rid of Tayam. The smart Tayam player who probably might play around it. It might, for example, let you remove the Tayam, play a stacks piece right after, or something like that. But that's the kind of thing that you kind of have to bite the bullet and just play around it. Learn to play around stacks. This is a mid-range deck, but it basically pivots into a stacks deck when the game plan of Tayam doesn't work.
Well, all right, man.
So
I think we're coming closer to an hour and a half. I think we better kind of wrap this up. Well, hey, man, thank you so much for telling us about the deck, and I mean spending more time than you probably expected. We had like a little 34-minute intermission. I had a little family emergency. My daughter's battery died in her car, and I had to go in the middle of our video. So I apologize for that. Thanks for being patient with me in that regard. Thanks for giving us your time and expertise, and I really appreciate the deck. I think it's fantastic. Now, probably not that many people have made it to the end of the video that have maybe put their decks in the competition, but I'm going to just say between you and I, this deck was the one that I scored highest. And the judging was, I was only judging on deck construction. And so the way I was looking at it is like, given that this player is going to play this commander, and this is the strategy he's chosen. So my grading didn't have anything to do with whether you should play that commander or whether you should play, or how good that strategy is. Just given that this is the decision that you made, how well did you do with the budget? How well did you do with the build? And you got the highest score from me anyway. And now that I've seen it play, I think it should get high marks in power also. And I don't know how it doesn't get high marks for spice, because I think Tayam's just a very spicy build. So you came in really good in the competition, but I'm not sure you shouldn't have been even higher or lower, depending on how you want to look at it.
I mean, I just have to thank. I just have to say thank you. To be honest, uh, I have to say that anytime that I'm talking about science is a pleasure for me. So we could literally spend the rest of the day talking
Yeah.
about it,
Yep.
but of course we can't.
But we can't.
So I'll actually do a little bit of solid. I'll say to everyone watching this video, if you're not in the Discord server, join the Discord server. There are a lot of good pilots, a lot of good techs, a lot of people experimenting with this new format, with uh, this new idea, and it's been really fun. It is a really fun format. It is a really fun thing to explore. Brewers, that's your playground.
Yes.
That's where you want to be.
All right, man. I appreciate the endorsement. Thank you for that, and appreciate you being a part of the Discord. So at that, I think I'm gonna cut this off. And if you want to hang out for just a minute after I wrap this up, how am I gonna wrap this up? Word to your mothers and your brothers and your fathers, East Side until the day that I die. Namaste to all my nerd homies. Namaste.